Hey, what's going on, parents? Happy Teenager Tuesday. We are in part four. Yes, part four. Part four of a series with the one and only, the beautiful, amazing Rhett Smith, talking about depression and anxiety.
You'll get your check in the mail for
Thank
the
you.
endorsement there.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. So last week we talked a lot about a lot of nuts and bolts on things that people can do, parents, good questions, ways to manage that kind of stress and anxiety and depression. And this week, let's talk about technology.
And let's be honest, like we could talk. Maybe you don't want to, but we could spend like 3 hours a piece on each topic.
Yes.
And so if you're a parent feeling
That's
overwhelmed, like it is overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so just know, like, whether through Hope or you can contact me about resources. There's lots of information to continue this discussion later or to give you resources.
Yeah.
And technology is one of those things that I
It
think
is.
as a parent of a 13-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son, like I'm a little overwhelmed.
So you mean you don't know everything about technology and like you don't got it all figured out?
I used to think so because back in the day I would lead workshops with my friend John Dyer and we would speak at churches. And then I realized I couldn't keep up anymore. And I realized kids were coming to my office.
When was that?
Like 2009,
Oh,
2010.
wow. Yeah.
And kids were coming to my office talking about all these sites that they were on that I had no clue because it changed so fast.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, I guess the one thing we maybe should talk about is, the whole iPhone. You and I were talking about the research that when the iPhone became, my favorite word, ubiquitous.
That's a good word.
Right? That we saw a rise in mental health issues with teenagers, especially girls.
Yeah.
Like anxiety, depression,
spike.
suicide,
Yeah.
cutting.
Yeah.
Enough so that all the researchers are like, this is a serious issue. That the phone itself, social media, technology, is probably a huge factor in mental health.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think that's a surprise to any parent that's out there because they're managing when do I let them have social media, even like YouTube pages. People, we're trying to help parents understand YouTube as a form of social media too, where a few years ago, the number one thing that a fifth and sixth grader wanted for Christmas was their own YouTube channel.
Wow.
So it's it's a tough area to kind of navigate and a brand new area in history to navigate with these scary pieces of research that are coming out.
But I remember too, like we had my son off of his phone for 2 days. Just kind of as a consequence to some choices.
Which is the worst punishment you can give.
And you know what? He was completely different after 2 days.
Really?
Like just his demeanor, how he responded, his behavior, his sleep. And I think he'd say the same thing about me, is that when I'm not involved in my phone all the time in technology, he probably thinks I'm a better parent. Like I'm not yelling, I'm more emotionally regulated. And so I think we'd be lying to ourselves to think that our devices don't impact us.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you heard of endorphin detoxes?
I don't know if I've heard that specific language, but I got a sense of what that looks like.
Yeah,
to just cut that stuff out, to detox from all of it.
It's to cut all like screens and forms of entertainment. So no music, no TV shows or anything on a screen, and the only form is like books. Yeah. And to do that, I was reading it. It says if you can do that for 48 hours, it kind of helps reset a lot of stuff because it just gets you out of that environment.
Yeah, I think like detoxing from things can be really important, but I think even more important is trying to figure out a rhythm of like what are the habits and rules that we're going to set for our family that we can keep up consistently, that over time will help reduce the issues, levels of anxiety and depression we're seeing.
That's good. So, way too long of a question, but what can parents do? Or what are some good practical things?
Let me throw out a book I just read that I think is phenomenal. Okay. It's called The Common Rule by Justin Earley. And he talks specifically in a lot of the chapters about technology and developing patterns around it. And he picks up on the language how what we worship is defined by our habits. The same with our like liturgy practices in churches. Yeah. So I really like that because I think he has a really good balanced view. The Common Rule by Justin Earley. A couple of things like easy you and I were talking about is I don't think phones should be in kids' bedrooms when they go to bed at night.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Just even the whole ambient idea of phone being there. I think the research is pretty clear. It creates levels of anxiety.
Yeah.
So making kids
sleeping patterns can get funky.
So plugging phones in the kitchen probably away from kids' sleep is critical. I think if you can Probably shutting down all technology an hour before bedtime.
Okay.
I think is shown to improve health and issues related to mental health specifically.
Is that even true for like us as adults?
No, it's super hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I try to turn off lights at a certain time, shut down technology, TV, phones. But again, it's a work in progress. I got to be honest.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do good at this, sometimes we don't. I was recommended to kind of have like like some form of technology box. Like when I walk in my house, you see a box, and it's not always there. Sometimes it's in our kitchen. And the goal is you see it, and it's a boundary. So you dump all of your technology, your phones, your iPads, and you put it there for a certain period of time during the day.
Yeah.
And then when families see it, they realize, oh, our goal is to be present with each other. Another idea is maybe just you have a rule that an hour a day, you just turn off phones or computers.
Yeah.
You know, so we could play around with different things, but I
Yeah.
think it's about the idea of developing a rhythm where we engage technology and then we shut it down.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I've seen too on the talking about like looking at the screen and the addiction of it. Even just turning the screen black and white.
Yeah.
Like your phone, you're way less likely to look at it if it's just black and white. So I have a setting on my phone. If I click the home button 3 times, it just turns it black and white.
Yeah.
So again, work in progress, but I'm trying to be aware. How much am I staring at my phone? What's my screen time? You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's simple things you can do with kids and also us adults. Like, you know, I don't get any notifications from anything on my phone except like a text message.
Yeah.
Right? Or a phone call.
Yeah.
I have nothing
sports.
on my front screen. I have everything on 2 screens back. So the front is just a picture with usually a quote or something. Yeah. So it's little simple workarounds.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the goal, I think, is to develop rhythms and patterns that break the addictive nature of technology because I'm pro technology, right? I'm not against it. It does beautiful things in our lives. But when out of balance, I think it increases issues in anxiety and depression a lot.
Speaking of out of balance, on the flip side, is there an unhealthy side of taking that technology away?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, a couple of the workshops this year during COVID, I encouraged parents not to use the removal of technology as a form of punishment because not only were they not seeing their friends in person, but then parents were taking away their only form of connection to their friends.
Yeah.
So now you got a kid who's not able to go to school, see friends, and you take away his only device to connect, whether it's through gaming, Xbox, phone, whatever, and talk about the levels of increased anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
So I think parents want to think critically about, you know, how they remove phones. Maybe there's a time and place to do it as a form of punishment. Maybe there's a time and place not. And, you know, it's an old argument that, oh, you know, those aren't your real friends. That's not real. Like,
sure.
Online is offline world.
Yeah.
It's integrated now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think parents back in the day to be like, those aren't your real friends. Those are just people online. No, those are the real friends. Those are deep connections.
Oh, yeah. Well, and us as adults, I mean, many parents that are watching this right now, they're on their phone just as much as their student, but it's Facebook instead of Snapchat or whatever.
Yeah, and if you want to see a change in your kids, it has to be modeled from top down.
Yeah.
Like, I can enforce as many rules and boundaries around the use of technology at my house, you know, maybe that I think would be helpful in terms of managing mental health. But if they see me scrolling incessantly, or if they catch me not paying attention to a conversation, or they see dad coming home and just glued to it, then I'm actually modeling them the opposite of what I want to teach. So I think parents, I'm a parent, we have to take a hard look at ourselves and go, what kind of patterns do we want to set, you know, that would benefit our kids and their brain development and anxiety and depression, and benefit ours.
Yeah. That do as I say, not as I do. It does not work.
No.
It just doesn't. Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
That's good. All right. Technology. So that was week 4, or this is week 4. We've got one more week next week. We're kind of finishing up. So you're going to say everything that you haven't said next week.
Awesome.
Parents, thank you so much for tuning in this week. Signing off. Remember, you can do this. You're not alone. God is with you, and so are we. Have a great week.